Good morning. I don't have a whole lot for you guys today. I did get a letter on 211th Avenue and we've had a conversation with a couple of the landowners. Because of how the road was laid in, a piece of property will actually goes to the person that lives on the other side of the road. And it's just where the property lines and everything lay. And I'm not sure if that's gonna get resolved the way we would hope it would be resolved, but they were in, there's some concerns about it there. They know the public hearing is gonna be here and then they can make their concerns known to you guys then, but I'm hoping we can resolve it.
That's a old 52.
Yeah. Southern part is by North Wind Road, and it kind of just loops back up. And when they put the new current 52 in, that was left to the county, and we just get it. We did run into some issues with, there was a survey made that stated that that land was owned by deed. And we don't believe it was owned by deed. The DOT does not believe it was owned by deed, but that survey's out there and we're working with that survey to try to get that kind of cleaned up. It's up to them. I mean, the surveyor's gonna do what they, what their records tell them, but we think there's a conflict there and we'd like to get that cleaned up as well and not just leave it laying out there. So 25 years from now, people come back and go, what was it? Hopefully clean it up now, but just so you're aware of that. We visited with Caterpillar, Ziegler, about the rebuilds, and we had them look at 3 machines. They did that last week. They were gonna put some numbers together and kind of give us an idea how deep we want to go. And then just see what our final numbers are for doing that. There's another outfit down by Des Moines. It's called Browns. They do the same thing. We have to have a conversation with them. Our concern with them is that some of the work, when they rebuild them, they're not going to put a cat park back in it. I don't really want to do that. I would just assume maybe they came as a cat, they're going to stay as a cat. And I don't know if that's going to change their number or make them in the ballpark or whatever, but there is another outfit that can do it, and they've done it for all types of different equipment. They're not a cat dealer or anything like that, but we need to just see the numbers and at least be able to make a decision.
Yeah.
How many graders, weights do they have?
We had them look at 3.
But how many do we have total?
12. Well, 13 if you count the spare.
How does that compare like the Howard County or the Allen County?
Allen has 10. Honestly, I know we have more than most.
Do we need more than most?
Years ago, there was, well, when I first started, right before I started, the board at that time made the decision to go from 14 motor graders to 12. So they reduced the size of the fleet. And before they had a huge auction where they got rid of all this equipment that they just didn't need. We've had conversations over the years about going to 11 or 10. I'm not a huge fan of that. Summer blading is one thing, but winter becomes a different issue. If you drop one machine, all of them, the remainders are gonna pick up 6 miles each, roughly. And when you blade at, 12, 13, 14 miles an hour, 6 miles is a lot to cover. If it's a real low travel road, you're gonna feel it. Not that you can't do it, but the public will feel. Not gonna be able to cover it like they can. If that's something you guys really want to look into, we can go down to 10. You can go down to as many as you want, I guess, but we put a lot of pressure on them. There are counties more to the west, where I know their blade routes, it's 100 miles. That's what they're maintaining. We're nowhere near that. We're in the sixties. Part of why we do it, we were going from 62 miles with which was the lowest mileage machine. The highest mileage machine had 75. And, with that they're getting better rotation into heat, and then just kind of evening the miles out amongst them. You know, that was one of the main things I was trying to get done, but
It's a lot easier, right? Close to the hills that we have now, when you get a heavy rain, you know what happens?
it's, you know, the flat terrain, they have drifting problems that, like in our northeast corner, we don't have those. We do in the southwest corner, but not in the northeast corner. So that makes that winter a little bit harder, but like you said in the summer, when you've got hills, even mediocre rain, if it just fell at the right time, they gotta get there and they gotta straighten it out. And, I preach to the crew, if it rains every night, we are blading every day. There's somewhere that we can make a difference with those machines, and especially coming into fall. That might be your last blading before winter hits, and that's where the road stays. And so blades, said it many times, that's probably the piece of equipment we lean on more than any other. That when we don't have them, it's a problem. And so I've never been a fan of going down in the number of machines. Again, not that you can't, it's just, you know, I mean, the public today doesn't know the difference of 12 machines versus 14. I mean, that's,
Would you need as many operators then?
well, you'd have, if you went to 11 machines, you'd have 11 operators. I don't know if you wanna make the crew smaller, you can, but again, there's just things we won't get to. Our bridge crew, is smaller than it was. Before I came, every shop had 6 people in it, and now a lot of them have 5 or 4. And that's just how it was. They got rid of blades, and by attrition, they just never replaced them. And so it's been working that way over the years. But equipment is much more reliable than it was in those days. It's bigger, definitely bigger. And we used to run all single axle dump trucks, and now we only have one. Everything else is a tandem axle. So when they run their routes, they can carry more per load, and they're more stable. So that's a really long answer to your question. So,
Out of curiosity, how we compare them.
yeah, we have more than most, but we're one of the bigger counties as well. So that's,
Yeah, I get average miles per roads like 800 if you count or state, something like.
yeah, and you know, we've got over 1,000.
1,050.
Yeah, I think when you look at, because miles of road goes into the road use tax formula for distribution amongst the counties. That's a big part of it, your miles of road. And, I think don't know exactly, I think we're like 15 out of 99.
Yeah, we're up there pretty good.
We're pretty good sized. We're not a full 20 township because the top tier is missing one group of sections. That's just a survey thing from days, but
Later time.
before all. Just so you guys are aware, our ice control piles, there's not much left there, if anything. And we've been hauling out of the quarries to try to get to these mud spots, and it's been going pretty well. Actually, quite honestly, I'm surprised the gravels have held as well as they have this spring, but they're not doing too bad. Frost is going, embargoes are up, and we haven't had too much for embargo come up. They'll be coming when they're contracted.
We're gonna keep hauling that as needed then anyway.
Yeah, they're trying today. The blades are gonna go as soon as it gets warm enough that because it was below freezing. When it gets warm enough that they can start blading again, they're gonna be out blading.
How do you haul gravel from the quarries to the gravel roads if there's embargoes up?
Be a little lighter than normal.
Okay.
That's why
Great
we-
question.
Quit asking questions.
Yeah.
The way the exemption works, and, I'll be honest with you, the state officers are very kind to us. The only time we carry an exemption for loading heavy is when we are actually in the act of doing maintenance work. So when the truck's loaded and the plows are on and we actually need to be plowing snow and dumping material, we can be overweight. But when we go like down here to Brunings to pick up sand to replenish the salt sheds, that exemption's gone. Now we're just stockpiling and we no longer are covered by that. But all of our wings posts are on, the trucks are now heavier than they normally are. So our carrying weight is drastically diminished. But we load what we normally would load and they kind of leave us alone. Because we're just trying to get material back, but if they wanted to push it, they could make it tougher than it is. That's the only time our exemption carries is when we're in the act of doing maintenance work. So we can't drive down the state highway loaded for bear and be in compliance. That's just, the laws don't have to make sense, they're just there. Recycling ordered a new pickup. I don't know when they ordered, it's been quite a while, and it showed up. And the deal we've had with them now for, Mitch, it's almost pushing 10 years, is when they buy that truck, we pay 3/4 of it, they pay 1/4 of it, they use it for a few years, and then we get it
Yeah,
after
'cause they
that.
just got that
They
is that the one
just,
they just got 2 years ago?
no, well, yeah, that's the one we're gonna get.
Oh, okay.
'Cause
So
they
just
ordered
got
it.
Here.
They ordered a brand new one, and I guess it came this week.
Oh, good.
This past week. At least that's what we were told. So when it gets prepped and ready, they'll take their brand new one and then that one they got 2 years ago.
Yeah, it's been, yeah.
That will go into our fleet. That's gonna go into the shop for now. The one they have in there is a 2001. The box is pretty shot on it. We put a Tommy lift on that one. And that's tentatively, that's where that's gonna go. So, and then that'll, I don't know what we'll do, if we'll just get rid of it or what, but the box is pretty tough.
And if you're paying 3/4 the price, you wouldn't want to wait 10 years to get it.
No, this is.
You only want to wait 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
And that's what they kind of get done every 2-3 years. They just upgrade theirs and then we take the old.
They got that one pretty reasonable.
That was weird.
Yeah, that was the municipality discount was on.
We get all of those government, those fleet deals, which, and now you can't get them.
25,000 or something like that.
Yeah, it was
all.
We ordered a 21 Dodge. It was a model year 21, and that 2 years later, we ordered a model year 23. It's identical as far as the truck. It's just 2 years newer and it was 20 grand more. The fleet deals were gone. And that, maybe they'll come back. I don't know, but right now they don't exist because apparently they make better money on the trucks than.
When they have a limited stock and to sell, they're
They're gonna go where who wants them.
who's gonna pay the most, that's right.
So, so yeah, so that's coming and that, we'll see that come through. Brennan is tentatively planning to start next week, 237, which is on 210th Street. Tearing that bridge out and putting the new one in. And then when they leave, back, and they leave, and then they come back.
It'll take about a month, weeks, no.
It'll be all of that. All of that. This one's the actual bridge. The boxes tend to go faster. But
Where is this one again, just for everyone's reminder?
it's on 210th Street,
Gary Brown,
west of, yeah,
if you're going south on 52 where the LP tanks are,
okay, turn west.
turn west right down there.
It's the first, second bridge you'll come. I think there's a smaller one before. It's close to where the old rail line used to cross in there.
Yeah,
Past the hardboard.
Yeah, yeah. So that's where that one's at. We're trying. Rolls and Brennan and all the contractors, they're not up and running yet. They're getting close. We're trying to get Pro and Bruning to have a meeting in Kelmer to just let the public come in and understand how they see this project going, because it is going to be an inconvenience. There's no question about it. We can't get away with that, well, we're gonna minimize it as best we can. But it's still gonna be an inconvenience. That's the nature of how this goes, especially in the two grading areas. One is near 237th Avenue. It's a dead end going south, because we have to regrade that. And then actually from the bike trail to 52, we have to regrade that because of all of those driveways and the sidewalks and everything. If we build it up, it's gonna make a mess out of that, so we're actually lowering that grade. And then putting the new pavement in, because the new pavement is there. Kind of get some kind of base underneath it, because what's underneath it now is not ideal by any means. So, with those removals especially, it's gonna be annoying for everybody trying to get in and out of it. It's just,
Do they have a start date on that yet?
no, we haven't gotten a firm date that they're gonna be here. They do plan to be coming in the next week or two, is my guess. I think it's gonna be, I mean, frost is not completely out yet. If you're gonna grade, you want that grade. Otherwise, you're fighting it the whole way.
Well, the biggest thing is to keep mushers.
Yeah.
Tanker.
Yeah, they're gonna have to separate. We did work out a deal. They can go south.
Oh,
They end up actually going through Lake Myers roadways
okay.
and getting out that way. They actually had a lane that went to a gate back there, which we're like, ooh, that worked out all right, but we'll have to do some, anticipate we're gonna have to do some work just to make it a little more stable and resistant to if it rains a little bit, so it doesn't get all muddy. There's also the north side of 175th Street. There's where Pivo and those houses. There's a road that, it's a dead end road that runs up there, but that actually is a section of old roadway that goes through the DOT's property. And we worked out to get them out that way. Once that project is done, part of the agreement is we have a piece of land in there that the landowner would like to have. And once we're done with the project, we intend to vacate that piece of property back to them and shut that off, and then people wouldn't be able to go through there at all, because it would actually be private property. So, but that worked out relatively well considering the factors.
How about the golf course? Yeah, the golf course is gonna be tough.
They're gonna be tough. What's really gonna end up happening is, with the grading part, everybody's gonna have to come in from the west. That's just the way it's gonna be. Once the grading's done, the paver starts. My understanding is that the paver or the plant is going to be located, kind of by a kiln. They typically pull to the plant, so they start at the far end away from the plant and pull towards it. They don't always do that, but that's typically what they do, and it doesn't matter if it's asphalt. So I would expect that they're gonna go to the west end and pull back towards Calendar. Once they get past 265th Avenue, then it's gonna get a little dicey, so they get past the golf course. And we do maturity testing, and that's been around for, oh man, almost 30 years. We were one of the first counties to try it in the 90s. Where when they pave it, they put sensors in it, and then they just take readings periodically, and they call it a time and temperature factor. So heat is a good thing. You want warm days, and just how much time under so much heat. We make beams, and we break those beams, and it creates a curve that you can now plot that time temperature factor, and we go, we can open it right here. And typically, I shouldn't say typically, historically, that's for us has been in the 32 to 40-hour range, so a couple days. Prior to that maturity testing, it was 2 weeks. Just somebody picked a number and said it's 2 weeks. 2 weeks is a lot. So, but just to kind of remind you guys, with all of the regulation changes, the concrete we have, and we've been using the last couple of years in our bridge decks, we're not getting strength as fast as we used to. We get it, it just takes longer to get there. And I'm afraid we're gonna see that in this, that strength curve is gonna get longer.
Same material.
Different material.
They've cut back on some of our normal cementous materials and basically you're getting limestone.
Right, I mean, the same that we've had these long terms on.
Yeah, it's the same mixes.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm afraid that's just gonna be the reality.
So if we open it up in 48 hours or 72 hours, are we gonna need to initially put a weight limit on it? So we don't end up, because we get a lot of stuff coming out of Spillville Mill.
No, it's still close. You don't live there. I mean, it's not gonna have shoulders on it. We don't want anybody getting on it and slipping off. Cause that'll be a very bad thing. It's still gonna be close. The only people that would have rights to it are the ones that live there. Now, the golf course, we're gonna have to make accommodations for them. But if anybody's bringing a semi to a golf course, that's just, I don't know why you'd ever wanna do that, but, you're getting strength that when we hit that, our trucks are gonna get on it. And we're gonna be hitting, dumping ramps off so that you can get on the slab, drive to your driveway and get off. And not, bottom out your vehicle or do any damage to it. So I mean, we have strength. If somebody gets on it, it should be fun. If they get on it before that, your guess is mine.
They better have good insurance.
If you're in a closed construction zone, you don't have insurance.
Oh, no.
If you read your policies and you enter a road that's closed, your
It's
insurance,
on you.
yeah, the people that live there, they have the right to be there. But if you don't live there and you just want to go that way, because that's the way I go, you take your life in your own hands.
The road don't open till it's actually all
We
done.
gotta have the striping on, we gotta have shoulders on it. I mean, it stays closed until it's done.
The county owns it till it's.
Technically, the contractor owns it.
Oh, yeah, contract.
Once we sign the contract, the road belongs to them.
Yeah.
So, and, that's why we can't just make them do whatever we want to do. They actually own the
Own
road.
the road.
Once it's done, we sign off that we agree that this is the product we wanted and we get it back.
Yeah, the concrete, when they were doing the curb and gutter and washing for Highway 52. In the spring, we took like 5 days before they could drive over. By midsummer, it was 2 days.
Yeah.
And it was meat and everything.
Heat makes a difference, high temperature factor, and the more heat you get on it, that 99-degree day where you're standing there sweating because you didn't move. That's the perfect thing for that slab. It wants that. Oh, heat hydration, that's what it wants.
Those sensors are very interesting though.
They're not much to them. You just slip them in the slab and
I looked out there that day, the guy from the state was doing it. I had to go out.
Yeah.
Curiosity got me. I said, what in Sam heck are you doing here?
Yeah.
And he showed me the whole tool and
Not much to it.
cuts the wires off and walks away. It's good.
Yeah, just leave the sensor in there and you're done. It's two wires coming out of the slab. That's all it is.
Oh, yeah.
And the work is done on the computer. When you break those beams, you plot the curve and then you just look at it. So it was a great thing. Like I said, it's been around about 30 years now, almost. When we did Locust Road, that was the first ones off the state system that we tried that, and we were getting 36 to 42 hours up there. That slab shine was, yeah, semi was stolen out of Minnesota. He came south down there, Houston County 8. Saw barricades, he went right through them and he found the wet stuff and he went as far as he could till it stopped. He going through.
Take that.
I know it didn't, that's all I need. I don't know where they ended up, but
It's like an out of control truck ramp.
it was, yeah. Except it's not what it was. We haven't had one project yet. Except the North Wind Road in history that I've been here for.
Somebody did.
Somebody didn't get into something.
Was it right here on 9 by 52 and 9 where somebody drove through the barricades at Bradley Point?
And we had it, the southern section of Locust, from Locust to Decorah. An individual got on that one and they figured out quickly, because they were chasing after the paver. So it was good when they got on it, but as they got closer, it was getting softer and softer. And they figured that out eventually, and then they got onto the shoulder and, but we tore out. It's like 1,100 feet of one lane. We tell you to stay out of it. It's not because we're trying to be jerks. There's a reason. So,
Yeah, that's the road that is in Gulf, past Gulf was Stillville Road.
yeah, if you're going down 52 to Kelmer and you turn where the distributorship and Peeble go west.
So that's,
Yep, and then it loops back to B16, which goes into Spillville. And that, it'll quit at that bridge, because we replaced lots of box culvert, we replaced that 5, 6, 7 years ago.
And the road actually changes designation
Yep.
at one point. So it's one number until you get to that turn that goes south to Fort Atkinson.
Yeah.
And then it changes to a different road number.
Because technically from B16, you come south, and when it kind of finally bends to be completely east-west, 265th continues down to Fort Atkinson. And that's how the numbering works, and it's just how it
and
is.
what other roads are we doing this summer?
That's the only road we're doing. We'll have patchwork we're gonna do. We'll have some asphalt stuff we're gonna do. We got some seal coats lined up that I think we're gonna end up doing. But we've got 4 bridges under contract, and then we've got 175th Street. And the next big paving job, I call it, would be W14 from Ridgeway through Spillville to Port Atkins. That will be fiscal 24, which for the feds will start in October, and that's a federal aid project. So our fiscal year July, the feds is October. It's just the way it works.
So a year from now, you'll probably anticipate getting ready to get that one going.
Hopefully they'll be knocking on the door to do that. Begging and pleading to get in. I would like to be first, but it doesn't always work out that we're
And
first.
that one was only possible to keep it in that time frame was by using $1 million of the,
1 point,
we used $1 million of the ARPA money put into the road, yeah,
yeah, we,
farm to market fund to
the
build.
farm to market fund is the match. Because STBG money is now federal aid and has a match requirement. It didn't used to for a while from 15 to through 22. The match requirement went away. Now it's back because of the new federal bill. So there's federal funds tied to that. We're gonna actually ask for more. I don't know if we get that. Mark sits on that board, so I know we got one bill, but I don't know how the rest of them are gonna go. The farm market account is taking up the rest of them. It really messed it up with this match requirement because it capped one project is how much federal aid we could spend on it. We have to have the match part. So we had this little residual federal aid that was sitting there. Well, we weren't gonna get it back. So that rolled down to the other section of road, which at that point wasn't federal aid. It was tied to federal aid, but it wasn't federal aid. Well, now it is. We got a little piece of it that's in there. It really made that project a lot more complicated than it needed to be, but that's kind of what happens when you introduce the feds in almost anything. It gets very complicated. Whether it's FEMA or FHWA or HUD or whoever. Yeah, so there's the long answer on how that is. Anything else? If not, I will get out of your hair.
Thanks.
All right, thank you.
And 10 o'clock, next on the agenda, Stephanie Crum and Mark Jensen, Winneshiek County Development and Tourism Funding Update. Welcome back.
Thanks for those.
I'm just luckily I took, public speaking courses, when people was there.
How are you guys today? We wanted to come back as it sounds like there was some discussion at the previous meeting around some changes in funding that have happened for Winneshiek County Development. Wanted to outline a little bit about what those changes were and give a brief synopsis of the past meeting that a few of your members here were able to attend. As you are well aware, obviously with Senate File 181, there was changes to your own budgets from the general component that then made your ability to support different organizations or to fulfill requests different. With the city of Decorah, that was to the tune of about 85,000. One of the ways in which they changed some things was to take the line item from their general budget off for Winneshiek County Development and transition it into their hotel and motel tax revenue stream. Since the early 90s, Decorah has been collecting a hotel motel tax under Iowa Law 423A. What that enables them to do is collect a tax within the city limits and then disperse that. There are means and rules that are required of the city when collecting that tax that dictate that at least 50% of that money has to come back towards economic development and tourism. And so one of the ways in which they execute that mission is through support of the Hotel Motel Committee, which then executes tourism initiatives on behalf of the city and the entire county. That is an independent board of the, not including, it's not ran by the city. It is an independent board of which 2 city council people sit, but they are not a managing partner of that. They also support an organization called Decorah Jobs, which manages the business part in the Decorah area, and then have support through the Parks and Recreation and our local trail system. So with that, historically, we used to be collecting about 483,000 pre-COVID. During COVID, we were down to about 415 to 436 in the 2 sequential years. So at that time, the city of Decorah was allotting, at least 50% of that. Actually quite more, but during those times, they were over 100% of it was going to tourism and economic development. Now, for the 2022 year, we're proud that the work that we are working at with all of our members to achieve has got that back up to 626,000. And right now, Decorah commits 500,000 of that 626 to the efforts of tourism and economic development. There is an additional monies that are over that then are available for use in the general fund for the city of Decorah, that they can take back to their general budget and they could use. They would technically only have to administer 315-ish thousand of that by definition to meet the parameters of the law. They could take all of it back into their general after that. So it's important for us as an organization, as my job as the president of this board, to always secure our funding streams. And so when we met with the city at our last meeting, we wanted to discuss with them how that funding stream would change, where we would be able to derive that from, and what the narrative or optics of that may look like when it comes out that they were changing their general budget obligation. They did then choose to replace that funding stream through our hotel motel tax stream. And when we talked with them, essentially what was communicated was wanting to ensure that that was a short-term fix, because Winneshiek County Development will be made whole and tourism will be made whole. But what it does is it inhibits our ability to move our mission forward, as we have to live off of what otherwise would be spending on outbound expenditure for advertising and for the tourism efforts. And so we discussed with them at length the ability to develop a sustainable plan forward where that excess over 500,000 that can technically go back to general budget, that walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck. Essentially, if we're going to supplant that $18,000 contribution that the city makes to our organization, we'd like to see that after the Senate File 181 year, where this is a mess, that we begin to see that repopulate through that discretionary budget so that it doesn't cannibalize the ability of the hotel motel marketing committee to advance that mission. Last time I was here, we talked about how much a deal of momentum is for tourism. And that if we let off that gas, and that's what finds us concerning in the hotel motel, of which I'm also the chair, that we want to be able to continue that momentum and continue those efforts. And as our organization, as a hotel motel chair, I look at us and our ability to deliver to our constituents, our members, our community people, and look at Decorah and the county as the same team. And everybody has players on the team. Some carry more weight than others, but we all are working together to advance the mission. And we don't have the luxury, we don't serve a single level of constituency. We have the broad cross section and really see a rising tide float all boat scenario. And we work hard to advance the efforts and capitalize on the strengths that each of these communities bring to the table. Decorah oftentimes presents the job opportunities, and our labor study shows that. The smaller communities bring the laborers into that. We are reliant upon one another from a number of avenues. Decorah may have a grocery store, Bluffton, where I live, doesn't, but Decorah also doesn't have the bluffs where the tourism comes and the canoers go and the recreational users that draw money into this community. And so our important part of trying to find those reciprocal balances to leverage the strengths of all the communities is an extraordinary task. And it takes partners like yourself and partners like the city of Decorah, partners like all of our community members here that are here representing your constituents today to, make that happen. And so I hope that we can get into a part where it's not a matter of how the city of Decorah administers their budget. It's not a matter of how you guys administer yours, that we see the collective efforts and we manage those situations. I know Dan is a city council member for Austin. So we talked at the meeting about like, what is the optics that if it comes out of the general budget of one community, but then it takes it for us to see that they're actually giving quite beyond the normal part by taking that hotel motel component that way. So overall, we won't actually see a budget loss. The city of Decorah, by changing our 2080 agreement to the hotel motel, will make us be able to be whole in the fiscal year 23, whatever the July to July one is upcoming. What we're working on is to create a sustainable way forward with them to not cannibalize ourselves within our tourism department and the hotel motel tax revenue streams they create that way for us. So they've been working and are very, very willing to create that change after this year if we can get over the hump of the 23 fiscal year, 24, whichever way it's going to be technically. That was the primary change, was that we're going to take from a different pot that is essentially their general fund stream that they could allow to come back into the city. But as a whole, our organization will be continued to be whole, and I would hope that you guys would be able to, continue to support and see the return on investment you're getting from that standpoint as well.
With hotel motel, is that strictly Decorah or is that Winneshiek County?
So the way hotel motel is structured is that any jurisdiction within the county has the ability to elect to collect. Yeah, so like, for example, Albuquerque County, there is an unincorporated collection that the county collects, and then Lansing has one and Waukon has one. In Decorah, we have one.
That's within the city limits.
Yes, it's just city limits.
Is it city limits or zip code?
And it's, yeah, so
I think it's zip codes based on what, like Airbnb and VRBO, the Airbnbs, so the vacation rentals, I think their algorithm draws it from zip code, because I don't think these platforms are gonna draw city county boundary lines and then capture those. I think, any Airbnb that's outside of the city limits, I think is still they're still collecting the tax for hotel motel. Traditionally, I think that's the case, yeah. So the city is collecting that tax from somewhere in Bluffton, say, or wherever it is.
it's technically a jurisdictional area of the city limits. However, 52101 zip code is also Bluffton, where I live, and I think that from a standpoint of ease, Airbnb, you have to opt out of, or you have to show them, prove your way out of that if you're 52101, because the primary thing. It's to the benefit that we collect, in one way or the other. I even stopped and talked to Ben about, the hard part is without a large draw of collection, like it's like an actual hotel or that, we could go put in jurisdictional areas for Ocean and Calmer and all that. What you may end up doing is cannibalizing one pot from the other and probably not to scale. So if all of a sudden if you guys chose to do an unincorporated, you might pick up the 21 Airbnbs that then would fall within this jurisdiction of that, but it's most likely may or may not be just traded from one pot to the other.
We already paying.
Yeah, the primary plane, and then like, okay, now you have $9,000 or $1,000 of hotel motel, so we would have to try to estimate what the advantage to the county would be to administer that on their own. We have to have that as a funding stream of their own, or if we'd just be cannibalizing from one place or the other.
Yeah, and I would say too, that the Hotel Motel Marketing Committee is promoting the entire county. We own the Visit Decorah brand and website and social media platforms. So I would say that the marketing committee may be branding Visit Decorah, but it's just like the Decorah Eagles. Decorah is part of the brand of the Eagles. You recognize the word Decorah. That's exactly what the branding company that we hired however many years ago, sort of deciphered from all of these community meetings. Is like Decorah is recognized. A visitor doesn't know when they're leaving city limits of Decorah to go to Bluffton or to Spillville to the museum. Like they just see, I'm coming to Decorah and I'm seeing all of these places, you know, because everything's within 20 minutes.
How many accommodations do we have outside of Decorah within the county? Are we talking like 21 is about all we have total?
No, and I just threw that
I'm-
number
I'm
out.
just wondering.
Yeah, and so then what
130,
Airbnb?
yeah, vacation rentals, total in Winneshiek County, I would say. And
The vast majority of the units would reside within the city limit.
yeah, I think.
So like when I would guess that probably 10 to 20% of those 130 may lie outside of it. We drew the jurisdictional line of the actual city limits.
Yeah, we don't even have any hotels outside of Decorah.
Not even motel, yeah.
Yeah, so you're just looking at the vacation rentals. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it could be 20.
That's about it.
Yeah, so like if you think of the average gross revenue of one of those and try to multiply that out
Yeah,
of
I think-
7%, you're gonna have more administrative components than you are likely to gain in a net
I
benefit.
think I can probably identify, I know of only maybe 3 in District 5.
Mhm, yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, we're lucky that since the early 90s, we've been collecting that to the tune of 626,000. And that's where I think it's important for us to understand that the city of Decorah could, in theory, leverage that money to their own general budget even more than they are. And that's where we appreciate that they don't, certainly, from that standpoint, see that. And that's why it's also building. I mean, we've been able to invest in tourism in a way that has allowed that revenue stream to grow year over year for a number of years. From that standpoint.
And benefiting the entire county.
Yep. And then, and that's our thing too, is, I mean, I can't remember, were they on that labor shed study email? I would bet that they were. Some of the stuff too, that you really get into this is a 2021, I only have my copy, I'll leave it here. But, little bits like, there's 1,200 people from the city of Decorah residents that leave Decorah to go work in Kelmer, Ogden, and other various places across the county. The average commute of a rural populace is 13 miles, which is essentially a one-way trip from almost anywhere in the county to the county seat of Decorah. And so there is that reciprocal nature. And I know that there was a question last time about what percentage of time we spend where. We really spend 100% of our time in Winneshiek County is where we spend. We don't spend 80% of our time in Decorah. We spend 100% of our efforts in this county. And that's how we see it when we serve all of our citizens and all of our constituents and you on what we're expected to return to you for your contribution to this organization. So that's what's important to us when you look at how we spend our time. So. Any other questions or concerns on that funding stream?
I appreciate the clarification.
On how that works?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's something that we could certainly look into, and maybe we could try to generate to determine if somehow there was 50 or 100 of those, or a greater populace outside that city limits to where you could extrapolate out if that would be a viable, an uncollected stream, but I just think it's unlikely.
Yeah, the administrative fees or organization.
Yeah, you just have another thing and it has to go to the state and come back and all that, so. Yeah, we again, thank you for your support. We hope that we're providing you the return that you would expect of us as an organization, as a board and as an employee on staff's behalf, but let us know if there's more questions. All right,
Thank you.
cheers.
Thank you, guys. Well, it's 10:15. Next on the agenda is Jerry Singh, roadside management program.
And I'm here.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you for allowing me to be here. This is a very important issue. It's not a small issue. Actually, just filling in what much you know, but you have much on your mind. The integration of the native plant species is the main improvement of the integrated roadside vegetation management program. And the issue at this point are the acreage of plots that Corey Meyer has established. Every small thing, which it might seem to be with the plots, is important. Each is of great value. In this case, this value is being enhanced. At this point, it's being started. We have a venture capital here that it should not be ignored. It should be built upon. It should not be destroyed. The plots have already been planted. And if they are allowed, even though they are not cared for, they will thrive and they will give you return on your money. You have already had grants of $350,000 in equipment, in supplies, and in labor and expertise. You have 100,000 acres of right-of-way, which in my mind is equal to the whole county practically, because it continues. It's not just an island here and there. Their seeds will be harvested by others. There is already a cooperative of effort that Corey Meyer has established. Many of the plots are co-owned by other organizations. The DNR and the Fish and Wildlife are in cooperation with your county on this one plot. It's a 9-acre plot, and the harvest is to be shared. It will go to they call themselves the Prairie Partner Group. And they will take the harvest and return in shares of 100 per. They'll take a percentage of that, give it back to the county with a choice of like 50 species of forbs. These seeds are very expensive. The Department of Agriculture, with their conservation reserve plots, have not required very many forbs because they are expensive. They are now co-paying with the farmers to add forbs now to their program. But then the farmer is into it. It's that important for the farmer and that important for all of us small, greedy human beings for our food supply. It's about time to turn the book over and do what is right. I can only give you a sketch of what Corey Meyer told us about. And then I can end with a quote. In the beginning, 3 years ago, the propagation was necessary, and the fire training program had acreage available. So the south plot was planted into grass seeds, 7 species of grass seeds, which makes up the base like a cover crop, but it's permanent for the forbs. The forbs are a main part of the pollinators' source food. The south side of the fire training acreage has been seeded with forbs. There are 9 species of forbs now. And the harvesting of the seeds was to be done by another county, by Dallas County. And that is set up for this fall for more of the grasses. The grass plot on the first plot has already harvested 2 varieties of wild rye. And that is being stored in a brand new shed, which is climatically controlled for just this purpose. It also is designed for storage and the processing of the seeds. And that was a grant. There's quite a bit of legal connections here. I have talked to one of the donors who has decided to call this lawyer. Not only what you are proposing to undo is the loss of Corey Meyer. This program, future to go ahead, requires his expertise. He has a love for what he does. He knows the needs of the topography. He knows the plants that can be used to solve your erosion problems, to solve the rocky areas. He knows as he works where the verifiable are that can be enhanced. You don't have to hire someone special who's not going to be there, who's not going to see those things. He is the one. Someone also from your Natural Resource Conservation Service perhaps could pick up where he leaves over, but it would yeah, wise to try to hire him back. We're very pleased to have him with the city. And he will do great things for us. I would like everybody here to get on their computer and click into the Roadside Management Advisory Board meeting minutes and updated plan. It's available for public review at www.winneshiek-county.iowa.gov. And you will be updated in the history of this program. Corey's quote is, overall, the sites planted throughout the county, he had established what was to make us as self-sufficient as possible and save the county thousands of dollars annually in not purchasing seed from seed houses. This was a win-win for county budgets and the environment. This is no small issue. This successful program deserves to be reestablished and what has been created to be preserved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good.
I also would like to pass out a letter from the president of the Master Gardeners Association. Thank you again.
Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you.
Well, the next thing over to here, but I can scan the email the people if they want to request that. Apparently not for everybody.
What do we have on the consent agenda?
I've got the minutes, claims, and a liquor license for Pinter's Gardens and Pumpkins.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the same sign. Motion carries unanimous.
Did they have a sheet went around that signature?
Right.
Come on, you might.
It's not that. That one. There you go.
Next on the agenda, 10:30, Jim Beeghly with 10-acre field and East Ridge Road information and comments.
Guess I'm here kind of about the same subject that you just heard about, rain. And I think for all of us that have been around prairie and worked deeply with it and read about it and studied it, it's a passion because of the love for the earth. And I don't know I've ever heard anyone express it better than she did. And I think we were all listening very carefully, and I was glad to see it.
Well, I'm here about the 10-acre plot. And the question is, should it be rented out for farming or should it be sold? As I understand, one of the board members has thrown out the idea that maybe we should look at that. That field, as we heard, is a source for native seed and the roadside vegetation program. Should the field be maintained or not? What benefit does it serve now that the plants will no longer be used in the roadside programs? I guess first I'll ask, any of you really entertained the idea of selling it? 10-acre plot, because 10 acres is part of a larger plot. And I don't know, I guess at some point I'd like to address whether that should be sold or not. And so if that subject comes up, I guess I'll just watch for it. But if you have anything,
I've suggested if there's county property that is there that's not benefiting, we need to not hold, it needs to be held by the public and not by the government. It should go back on the tax rolls. Remnant parcels. Any remnant parcel is not being used for the county actively. Why do we maintain it? Why do we keep it? Why do we keep the liability of it?
do you think that the county has any responsibility that it shares with national government, state government, and all other agencies of all those about care for the environment?
We do that in many different ways. That's true. I don't see them. There's two other parcels that we're probably going to be discussing down by the Turkey River. And again, those are not something that the county has any real benefit from. They could go back and be used because of floodplain.
Are they seed plots? If you ultimately seed plots?
No.
Okay.
They're flood prone. They're floodplain.
Okay. Now, first, I'm going to read for you. I asked for the input of John Beard on my presentation, and he's looked into the value of this field as a prospect for sale. He says, this small field has moderately eroded soils with low corn suitability rating and a remote location with access by unimproved easement. The forested perimeter will guarantee heavy cross predation by wildlife. Interest in renting it has been and will likely remain low. Former supervisor and knowledgeable farmer Mark Kuhn, who was in charge of managing county ag property during his terms, stated that returning this field to commodity crop production or selling it without careful study would be very irresponsible. He and I, as is John, and all of the former board members also remember that this field is in the watershed that ravaged Freeport with flood runoff. Though the field is small, it would be an important gesture by the current board to keep those acres in vegetation that minimizes runoff. So I went out to look at the site as well, and the soils are not well adapted to row crop. They are good for growing CRP programs that the government sponsors, but that's about it. And that would be basically the same thing that it's in right now, only not as well enhanced as the number of different individual species as are there at the present time. I was looking at this letter that was left laying over here that some families interested in renting it for agriculture. And I noted on there they had visited the soils site, and on Beacon and I've done the same. And I've looked at the different soil types on there. There's 4 soil types. I have another page. I have it on the diagram. The 4 soil types, they range from anywhere with a corn suitability rating of 10 up to, I believe it's in the upper 40s or 48 maybe or something like that. And on average, got another problem, and that's access. I didn't know how to get up to it. When I found out where it was, I went out to the county shop, the road shop, and they said, well, you can get up through here if you can make it. And I looked at that and I didn't know if I could because it was icy and melting and it was really slippery. Even with the leaves, you could get a little footing on it. It took me a half hour. And I had went about 100 yards ladder that seemed like 20 miles up that hill. So I thought, no, this surely can't be it. You can see somebody going up there with a logging truck or something at one time. And I think when I get to the top, I saw a blue tank up there, which I inquired about. I guess that's the water tank for Freeport. And so I'm wondering if that wasn't the construction where they went up through there, did their construction to the water tank. But anyway, realistically, honestly, I just think any thought you have of running this out to a farmer, I want to meet the farmer once they really look into it. And I'll admire them, but I will not appreciate what they'll do to the prairie. I just, in the bottom of my heart, I cannot understand. And I'm speaking to you from my guts. I don't see how we can do that. I brought another little, this is a little outline that made the day I started putting materials in. These are the grandchildren of my wife's sister. And she had a farm down by Fayette, as I said before, we had quite a lot of prairie and fire breaks that I know regularly around. And so every year her family, extended family, they'd all come up and that was their highlight of the year, the kids. The young my folks were at the 40, there was about a 40-year-old golf cart. And they run, and they get on there and they spend the whole day out there and they were just delighted. I've never seen kids in any park have as much fun as these kids did. And there's a couple of them right there. They're preschoolers, and they're fascinated by that prairie. I've never seen them do that before. And I think that needs to be a big part of your decision when there's so little economic benefit of turning away from it. And I'd be glad to entertain any questions you have. This is a little book that I put together on the farm, and some of the little kids, what they want to do here in the winter time, so what is that? And here's a picture. Sorry, I might have it back. I guess the after effects of that wine. But anyway, this was a picture about 4 or 5 years after we had the prairie out in the CRP ground, but we also, after we had a tenant that went to the pasture, and they sort of on the cattle, we rented to it, the previous owners had rented to it for years. And so we continued to rent to it. And I grew up on a farm, and so we got to be with it like my cows and calves, every day when they come up for water. And I found myself counting the calves and the cows. One day I was one calf store. We had a storm the day before. I was up in the tunnel that might be killed under the big old cotton. And but out of the fences, I was spending about a week or two every year trying to patch the fences that had been built probably in 1910 or something. And I get tired of fixing the fence, trying to keep the cows in and worrying about the cattle when I wasn't there. And I thought, well, I figured out this. And so we did. And they would take out the path. They came to the door by summer to pay that to our pasture, which is only 30 acres. And so we got that big wetland in it, like cattail store, and we got interested. This was the process for us. We weren't well acquainted with any of this until we bought that farm in 2001. But I'm sorry, I see this stuff. I'm put it through real estate on page 38. Okay, I just thought it was 15 minutes. Yeah, I'm sorry. No, that's all right. I was able to go to it. I'm not able to keep my phone. You can still contact me. I'm not chat faster. Okay, well, thank you. Next, I'll be